Hi, could I speak to Ted Morgan, please?
Yeah, speaking.
Hi, Ted. It's Peter.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. So are you ready to get this started?
Yes, right ahead.
Sorry, one second. What's that?
What's that?
All right. So basically, my assignment was to interview someone who had witnessed or been part of an event. And so I was talking to my grandmother, Jean Zanker, and she said that you had been part of. You had been a what was it? Well, first of all, what division of the military were you in?
I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I was a parachutist with the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment.
Okay. Before we get into the questions about the war and your experiences there, I just want to get a quick background about your life. So, where did you grow up?
I was born in Edgartown, Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
In 1921.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Edgartown through my high school years and up until about 2 years after that. And I went to visit an uncle up in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a couple of months. During that visit, Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941, which was actually the start of World War II.
Yeah.
And that was in December, and in January of 1942, I enlisted in the United States Army.
Okay. So that covers most of what I was going to ask. Before Pearl Harbor, did you ever consider enlisting in the Army, or is that really what sparked your interest?
No, I had never thought about it, but like millions of other Americans, spurred the interest, and many of Americans did, volunteer for service at that time, in addition to many more being subscripted into the service, so to speak.
Yeah.
I volunteered because of what happened, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a good indication we were going to be involved in a war, and
Yeah.
millions of loyal Americans did the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you guys were one of the first to drop into Normandy. You were the air troopers, so you guys were jumping out of the planes, correct?
Yeah. What happened was, what's your first name?
Peter.
Peter.
Yes.
We went to North Africa. The 82nd Airborne. We joined the 82nd Airborne in February of '43, and we left the States in April of '43.
Okay.
And we went to North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And then we trained for a couple of months, and we made our first combat jump into Sicily.
Was that, did you have any previous training prior to North Africa, or is that where you received all of your,
No, we had training going through parachute school to qualify for as a parachutist. That was 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then we trained after that. I graduated in July of '42, was assigned to the 505 Regiment, and trained until '43 in Georgia. And then in February of '43, we were transferred to the 82nd Airborne, assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division, and we trained from February to April, actually, a couple of months, and then we went overseas at that time.
Okay. And so you're in North Africa a couple months, and then you guys dropped into Normandy. So, do you remember the date, or?
Wait a minute. We dropped into Sicily.
Oh, Sicily.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my first jump. That was on the 9th of July, 1943. July 43.
Okay. I really didn't know much about your experience besides I was told that you set up some type of a soldier hospital in the field. Is that correct?
Medic. Okay. I was a first aid man.
Okay.
Combat medic, they called us.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did, each battalion, there were 3 battalions to a regiment and a regimental headquarters. And we had a total of 80 medics.
Yeah.
Now, those medics were broken down. You had a regimental aid station. Then you had a battalion aid station for each of the 3 battalions assigned to the regiment. And then from those battalion aid stations, you had first aid men assigned to platoons in the line companies.
Yeah.
And there were 3 platoons to each company. So you had a first aid man assigned to each one of those platoons.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they lived with them and took care of them.
And that was you?
What's that?
And that was you?
With me?
That was your job. You were the
Yeah, my job, I was in the battalion aid station.
Mm-hmm.
My job was to assign men to the different platoons, and during a combat situation, they would evacuate patients, say from the companies, from the platoon through the company to the battalion aid station.
Okay.
And many times we would have to provide men from the battalion aid station to go out into the line companies to pick up wounded to assist the aid men that were assigned to the different platoons.
Okay.
The chain of command was the man was wounded, the first aid man would take care of him from the platoon, get him back to the battalion aid station, and then our job was to get him back to the regimental aid station, and eventually a hospital would be set up by the troops coming in by sea, and then we would go from the regimental aid station to what we would call an evacuation hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Be set up in tents. That would be the first hospital that would be set up in a combat area.
Yeah.
So that they would stabilize the patients, then prepare them for evacuation back.